Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the official coverage of the 2024 MUFON Symposium right here in Irving, Texas with the Curious Realm. Chris Jordan here, coming at you live. Welcome our first guest, Marianne Robb. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so very much. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming out and helping lead part of the field investigative training yesterday. You are with UAP-PD.com. You're a former law enforcement professional, correct?
Correct.
How did you come to begin with to get into law enforcement? Let's start there.
Well, moved out to Arizona from New Jersey back when I was, 13 years old, so back in 1980. And we had a career day, and there was a police officer that came out and talked about the career of law enforcement. And they talked about Boy Scouts of America had a program called the Police Explorers.
Yep.
So at 15 years old, I became a police explorer.
Wow.
And through from about 14 years old to 21, just was an explorer. And it was so cool because I did patrol work. I did all kinds of really cool stuff, just growing into becoming an officer. So 2 days after I hit 21 years old, I was in the police academy.
Wow.
And became a police officer in Arizona, and never looked back. I did 34 years.
Wow.
As an officer, worked various. I was a property crimes detective, an arson detective, a narcotics detective.
Okay.
But my most favorite was working patrol. Most of my career was working patrol, and I just loved being out there on the street, always being the first on a scene.
Yeah.
And it was thrilling. It was a lot of fun.
It's remarkable. One of the things I speak of regularly on the show is the importance of cataloging data. Mm-hmm. The importance of properly cataloging data. And that's a lot of what y'all were going into yesterday in the field investigator training.
Right.
How did those skills as a police officer translate over to the world of paranormal UFO UAP investigation?
Well, what we just do is we do the interviewing. We're teaching people how to do a good interview.
Okay.
So field investigators, really being a police officer, being a field investigator, it's the same type of interview.
Yeah.
There's nothing different. You want to know the who, what, when, where, why, how. You ask open-ended questions. I mean, it's just something you do. You don't ask, closed questions or yes or no questions, I should say. Yeah. And the biggest thing is get the rapport with the person you're talking to. Mm. Get a good rapport with them. You're going to learn their mannerisms, that somebody's, how they act, to see if they do something different. There's a possibility they might be deceptive.
Sure.
And we show them signs, what to look for if a person is trying to be deceptive.
Okay.
I don't think everybody is, but that's why you have to know the person and build that rapport to see what they're doing and then when you do the investigation, if they do things a little different, like maybe cover their mouth or close their arms or do something, it's a possibility that they could be deceptive. So that's what we teach these guys in the field investigator training. Interesting.
And that it really is important as you're gathering information. I mean, I just came out with the field observation and encounter log because if it goes past 48 hours, like there's a whole show on TV, 48 hours. Like if a murder investigation goes beyond that, your chances of solving it rapidly decrease. People's memories start fading. The facts start getting obscured by other things. So the faster and more accurately you can get an account from somebody, a witness statement, things like that.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And once again, even how you're approaching how you interview that witness makes a big difference in how they reveal that information to you.
Oh, definitely. And another reason we started UAP-PD is not just doing the MUFON thing. I mean, that's really great. We've gotten some stories. We've actually got one that we'll be talking about Sunday morning that started with MUFON, but because they were law enforcement and first responders, they didn't really talk to MUFON, but they talked to us.
And that's something really interesting because it's something that we talk about regularly on the show is people's reticence to share a story, especially when it comes to people in authority, law enforcement. I mean, we've seen over the last 2.5 years since ARROW started, the idea that there is now a pathway for people like that to make a report.
Correct.
Without it threatening a career. Because, yeah, if you've spent 25 years in law enforcement, you may not want to go tell somebody that, you know, you saw this thing on the side of the road, and it could very well be something that, you know, a prosecutor may use against you in court. At some point. Well,
not
you
a
know,
prosecutor, but that defense attorney.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
my partner,
exactly,
Dave Rich, talks exactly about
Precisely.
that. You get to a jury, you've got a, let's say, stolen vehicle burglary. The person's dead to right. We have evidence. We have everything. But if that defense attorney finds out that you made a comment about seeing a light in the sky,
Yeah.
or something paranormal or whatever, and they're going to say, officer, so let me get this straight. You saw this light in the sky and you think it was a UFO? And then, of course, the jury is going to be going, you know, and people are going to be snickering.
Yeah.
Because you know, when you got on the witness stand, I'm going to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So you have to say yes. You get one juror out of the 12, even though 11 people, yeah, he's guilty. One person says, what a crackpot cop there you've got right there. We can't trust him.
Yeah.
Boom.
Whole
That
case is
person,
gone.
exactly. Not only that, but that defense attorney is going to go tell all the defense attorneys, you know, in Arizona for us.
Yeah.
And then the prosecutor gets a hold of the chief of police, says, we can't use this guy or gal anymore.
Yeah.
He or she is, you know, they're going to use this light in the sky thing, and the credibility is totally shot for that officer. They lose their career.
Yeah.
Absolutely anywhere in the country.
Yep.
That person's never going to be a police officer anymore.
Yeah, and we've had that conversation before on the show with Terry Lovelace, who lives right here.
Okay.
Who used to be a assistant district attorney, things like that. You know, it's like he couldn't tell his story for decades because it could quite literally subject every case he's ever been a part of or tried to retrial. You know, and it's interesting when you start getting into that side of things, when you start talking about people. Once again, the ATIP program and ARROW allowed naval pilots to be able to come in and report things without fear of losing their career or their wings, and we really need the same kind of thing for law enforcement professionals, that kind of stuff.
Oh, no doubt. See, that's it. When we started looking into starting UAP-PD, my partner, Dave Rich, 25 years law enforcement, I had 34. We said, pilots are talking military. Everybody's talking about them having a safe zone and getting out there, you said, with ARROW and sharing these experiences they are having. But nobody's talking law enforcement. Yeah. Nobody's talking first responders.
Yeah. And
we said, because my partner had he investigated a paranormal incident that happened in Arizona, in Gilbert, from our police department. And he was told, after he did the thorough investigation, he was called upstairs and told, you talk about this anymore, you're going to be fired. That was 6 years ago.
Wow.
And he, for 6 years, when he left that office, for 6 years, he says, I'm not saying a word. I need to retire. I have a young family. I can't jeopardize my job or my career or my credibility.
Yeah.
So he kept quiet for 6 years until last year when he retired. We said, you know what? You had this incident. You had the stress that hurt his health, that hurt his family life. You know there's other people out there that this has happened to. So that's why we started the UAP-PD, and we wanted to tell officers and first responders that there is a safe zone. We are police officers. We understand what you're going through.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be ridiculed. You're not. If you want to be identified, great. You know, we'll use your name in our report.
Sure.
If not, we don't.
Yeah.
But that gets the stress off of them,
so
they talk about it and get it out.
Well, yeah, and one of the things we speak about regularly on the show is the traumatic nature, sometimes of even just witnessing something, because it can be hard to share that. It tears families apart. It tears husbands and wives apart. You know, I mean, even Terry Lovelace, him and his friend, that he spent almost 20 years in the military as an EMT with, and much like a police officer rolling with a partner, You see things as an EMT with a partner. You get very, very close. And the fact that they both shared that experience, never talked about it, it ate away at their friendship, things like that. Like you're saying, it's no different than the trauma that a police officer goes through when they have to use their gun.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a reason why we send them through literally, psychological help, things like that, through counseling after they've fired their weapon, because there may be something reticent in there about their having to use that. And they're may very well no different than, a victim of abuse not telling their story.
Right.
It can very well take root in the same way whenever you've had an experience.
Well, and also police officers have the type A personality. We go into a scene, we're going to solve this issue. Whether it's domestic, we'll go into your house on a domestic, tell you to shut up, sit down, we're taking over. This is our case now.
Yeah.
Or any case, a burglary or anything. You see a light in the sky. You see a paranormal situation. You see maybe possibly a Bigfoot. You see something. You're like, I don't know what that is. And that's another thing is, the officers are sitting here going, what was that? I can't explain that. And that's another thing. Police officers should be able to solve that crime or solve something. Yeah. They get in there, they see something. And that's another thing. Like you say, two partners, they're like, I'm not going to talk. You're not going to talk. Are you going to talk? I'm not going to talk. And that's it. It's bad that they have to, their friendship, like Terry, just got ripped apart. If nothing else, it should have made them closer. But again, nobody's talking.
Yeah.
And probably back in those days, you definitely didn't talk.
Oh, yeah.
At least now it's starting to go out with the military and the pilots that, hey, let's throw law enforcement in there and let's start making it.
That's right.
Easier to talk about.
Yeah. Well, because you're quite literally in a position not only of authority, but in a position where your job is see something, say something.
Yes.
And it's no different than not reporting abuse or something like that as a police officer. To hold that information back is hard because you're literally going against your training.
Oh, definitely.
100%. That is a full-on conflict inside. So I can imagine that makes the conflict even harder.
It is, but that's what we're doing. That's what our organization is, that we don't want law enforcement and first responders to have that stress and that there's no place for them to go.
Yeah.
We want to get the word out as much as we can. We've tried on podcasts. We're speaking, on Sunday. We're getting it out saying, yes, there is a safe zone for you guys to come and talk. Yeah. Again, just get it out. Get it out of your system. Like I said, my partner has had an experience. I have never had an experience. All my years I've been out there, even fishing and hunting and being out, I've never had anything, but he has. So you get an officer that, look, I've had this experience. I don't know what to do. I am just at my wit's end.
Yeah.
Well, not only can you talk to us, but my partner's had the same issue. So you guys can, talk to each other and help each other through it. So that's what we're there for.
Yeah. It's quite literally a new type of special victims unit.
Exactly. Exactly.
And one that is highly necessary because once again, you're talking about somebody who may literally be dealing with an experiencer on a front end situation, no different than a field investigator. And if they're wearing a badge and they don't know how to deal with that, even right now, there is a huge movement. San Antonio, I know, has a fantastic mental illness program that they now send their officers through on
it's cool.
how to deal with people that you may run against on the street, things like that, who aren't violent people. You just don't know how to deal with them.
Right, right, exactly.
And there's been a great documentary about that. It's very much the same way here. Like, how do you we have a special victims unit for people who've been sexually abused, things like that, but what about people who have gone through abuse like this? What about people who've had experiences like this? Even once again, police officers. How do we counsel them through that experience, and how do we get them to a point to understand that experiencer when they come across them?
Now, and we've got to get the agencies on board, all police agencies. We have to get them on board to have something to listen to the officers. Hey, I saw this light in the sky, or I saw this paranormal experience. I had this paranormal experience. Right now, the agencies from lieutenant up don't want to hear this.
Yeah.
They don't want anything. This is voodoo. And that is, what do you do? I'm hoping that in time that this will be just like military and the pilots. This will just be a normal thing to talk about.
Yeah.
But that's it. I guarantee a police officer will not talk to just anybody, will not talk to a psychiatrist, will not talk to a MUFON field investigator, will not talk to somebody that is not a law enforcement, that knows the training and everything. My career can be totally just gone.
Destroyed.
Yes, within seconds.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm hoping someday we will get to that point where this will be a norm.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of paranormal stuff. There's a lot of UFOs, light in the sky,
tons.
There's so much.
Tons.
And now that the government has kind of, talked a little bit about disclosure, that people are coming more and more. And I mean, just like this conference here.
Yeah.
Everybody's coming in. I have this story. I have this story. But you just know that there's law enforcement and all that are just still they're going to stay back and go, yeah, I had an experience, but I'm not telling you about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and
So,
with that in mind, let's move things to the investigative side of things, and how you go about teaching people to properly catalog that. Once the experience happens, once somebody comes into contact with an experiencer, even if you were talking to a police officer about, like, I know you've taken interviews before, it's a different kind of interview. Walk us through that interview process when you first meet an experiencer.
Well, if we're talking police officers, because I really haven't, because usually when I was a field investigator, the experiencers, we pretty much sent them to the ERT team with MUFON.
Sure.
But what we do is, if a law enforcement, matter of fact, we have a good case of a homicide detective that had a paranormal experience. It was investigating a homicide. And there was some paranormal things that happened to him, where he actually went out with a medium, a couple other people, another skeptic detective, and a couple others. They went to the area that this person died, and they started doing the talking to this person. And on the voice box, they asked, who killed you? And the voice of this dead person told them who killed him.
Wow.
Well, explain to me, you're really going to take that voice box to court and use that? Oh, by the way, the
cross-examine
deceased person,
the voice box.
is just said who they killed. So that detective, this really stressed him out to the point where he had to retire. He took a medical retirement.
Wow.
Because it was just eating inside of him so much. He said that he agreed to come to my house, and we sat at the kitchen table. And my partner Dave and I were interviewing. He says, I don't want you to take any notes. I don't want you to video or audio tape, nothing. So we just sat there. He started as you know, body language. His shoulders were up. He was in a defensive mode that he didn't really want to talk. Spent about an hour telling us from the beginning to the end of what happened to him. All of a sudden, you watched stress and everything just melt off of him. And his shoulders went down. And when he left, he says, thank you. I have never said anything to anybody. So that's what we try to do. First, we try to make them feel comfortable and know that this is a safe zone to talk to us. Then we say, tell us how much you want to give us, all the information that you want to give us. We don't, interview him and try to say, well, what happened now? Well, what happened here? What happened here?
Yeah.
Tell
it's
us
not an
what.
interrogation.
Right. Tell us as much as you want of that experience that you had. And then after that, now he told us, don't take any notes, don't take anything. Plus, it's also still a open investigation, even if it's a cold case.
Yeah.
So we can't do anything anyway.
Totally.
But that's what we do, is we want them to relax, get it off of their chest, get the stress out of them. So if nothing else, they're healing. They're going to, their mind can heal at least a little bit, that they finally got it off their chest. They're telling somebody that'll listen to them and not call them a crackpot. So basically, after that, if they would mind, if we can use that story, whether or not when we go to when we do podcasts or when we do different, not symposiums, but different presentations.
Sure.
You know, we are looking at writing a book, and so if we can use their story, their encounter in our book, great, fantastic. But then, you know, we tell them, you know, we're all law enforcement. We're all a family. We are brothers and sisters in blue. As my partner says, that when we were working on the job, we take a bullet for each other.
Yeah.
We will still take a bullet for each other in a matter of sense, as even though we are retired. We will do whatever they need us to do. I'll be more than happy. And that's another thing. When we do interviews, we don't just do them on the phone. We just, if they live in Arizona, they'll come to my house. But I will be more than happy to go to whatever city or state that they are in to get an in-person interview. Because I know a lot of people would rather have the in-person because they have no idea who I am.
Yeah.
You know, on the phone. So that's kind of how we would address if an officer came to us and says, hey, we have an encounter. We try to make them comfortable, and then please share as much as you would like with us. So that's kind of what we do.
Yeah, and how has that been received so far by the law enforcement community? How many officers have y'all spoken with?
We have about 60 stories.
Wow.
And we've got probably 15 that are historical cases, but we have about 60 right now, and we have a lot of paranormal. And a lot of the paranormal are coming from the Indian reservation, the Gila River Indian Reservation.
Really?
Because it's real interesting that because of the paranormal and all, that is, I don't want to say it's a normal occurrence on the Indian reservation or like the cryptids, the skinwalkers and Bigfoot, but it is, it's well known.
More accepted by the society there on the reservation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Than it is on just, I call it white man land.
Well, yeah.
And they even have in Gila River, and that's another thing, like if you went to court in at one of the Indian reservations and the defense attorney says, hey, have you, officer, do you see a Bigfoot? And then
about three times a week, yeah.
All of the jury is going to say, well, I saw one, I saw one. Yeah. So it's more accepted on the Indian reservation.
Well, it's interesting because at the symposium last year, I spoke with Tiago Tiechi from Brazil, like literally the sole investigator for MUFON from Brazil.
Wow.
Like one of the largest places in the world for UFO contact, UAP contact. And I asked him, I was like, I know you're in Sao Paulo and the tribes, the natives are far away from there, like days travel. But whenever you go out there to talk to oil field people, things like that, do you ever get reports from the natives whenever you're out there? And he's like, on occasion, but it's really more the fact that it's accepted by them. Yeah. Like, they don't report it because it's nothing strange to them.
Yes, exactly.
It's not like the people in the city where it's like, what the heck was that? For them, they've been seeing it for generations.
Exactly.
So it's nothing weird for them to report. Once again, those on the reservation are not hesitant to report a paranormal activity. They are hesitant to say, hey, man, just saw a Bigfoot roaming through my backyard. You may want to come check it out. And that would be a viable call on the reservation as opposed to 2nd Street.
Yes. Oh, my gosh, yes. They even have policy and procedures when they go out to this mission that's out in the middle of nowhere. They have a policy and procedure. When you're driving down that road, you will take your rearview mirror and you will flip it up. Because if you do not, there will be red lights in the back seat of your patrol car. And if that happens, they basically say the best thing for you to do is go find the medicine man and have a blessing done.
Wow.
Yeah. Because they say, whatever you do, you better flip those lights because it's almost a guarantee that this would happen. And they says that there's a policy on what you need to do, and if you don't do it and you do see the red lights, what you need to do. And usually it's a blessing from a medicine man, and that they smudge the car and everything else that needs to be done. So
interesting.
Yeah. You wouldn't see that on a city policy and procedure.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to see that by Austin Police Department. I don't think they have that procedure in there.
Yeah, no.
That's interesting, though, to see the fact that there is even procedure laid out for that.
Yes.
You know,
Exactly.
because you're crossing a cultural barrier there and a different realm of understanding. You know?
Yeah, and
So-
what's interesting, though, in the fire, I want to say in the 60s, the fire department, their procedures, their national procedures, or whatever it's called, the NPA, or there's a rules and regulations, they had a chapter on crashed UFOs.
Oh, wow.
They actually did. I would love to get that. I'm still looking for that manual. But back, I want to say it was 60s, 70s, that
Interesting.
it was in the manual for firefighters. And of course, they took it away.
I could see that for firefighters, definitely,
Yes.
as far as like first response to a hazmat, things like that.
Exactly.
You know?
I mean, they had one chapter just for crashed UFOs.
Wow.
And then, of course,
Things I've got to find for my library.
oh my goodness, yes. I would love to find that. I've tried, but not yet.
Before we let you go, we've got you for about another 5 minutes. How important is it for any experiencer, and this would be paranormal, cryptozoology, UFO, UAP, how important is it for them to catalog that and record it as soon as possible?
Oh my
Marianne?
gosh, it should be done right away. It's very, very, very important. Because like you say, you know, person in a crime, we have witnesses. We have 5 witnesses to a crime. And if we wait a little bit, each person is going to tell us a whole different story.
Yeah.
But exactly, not even just 48 hours. We need within 48 minutes.
Yeah.
If you see something, anything, if you can't write it down, everybody's got a cell phone now. You've got a recorder on that cell phone.
Yeah.
Do that. Record what they see. And even if you don't want to share it for a long time, people, there is a certain, and I'm not sure exactly how many minutes, but they say when a witness or somebody sees something, there's only a certain amount of time that they're going to totally remember.
Or that they're going to totally remember it without it going through their filter.
Yes.
Without them processing it through the filter of life, through the filter of experience, things like that. And that's something that we discuss regularly. And I'm sure you've run against it with police officers. You walk into a house, you ask 2 kids what happened.
Exactly.
You're going to get 2 different stories,
Yes.
even though they're in the same room when the incident happened, because they're both seeing it through a filter of experience.
Exactly.
You know?
And that's what's great about law enforcement is, you know, we're trained observers.
Yeah.
That is what we do for a living. So it's easier to maybe get their story a little bit later, but if any experiencer sees anything, please document it. Now, even if you send it to MUFON, you make a CMS report, it might be still a few days before you're contacted.
Sure.
So any experiencer whatsoever, please document it right away.
Yeah.
And then we can go back later on and, you know, if you don't remember before, you can fill in the blanks for what you wrote in your
And there's
report.
nothing wrong with if while you're waiting for MUFON to get back to you, you remember more stuff, write it down again. Write it down again.
Right. Write it down, and if you can draw pictures.
Yes.
If you can draw anything that you can do, we need everything that we can get.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time, Mary. I've got to have you guys on again and again and again. This is definitely a cause that I can get behind.
Oh,
the
thank
idea
you.
of getting law enforcement on board with this, because once again, until we have a proper reporting system, until we have not even a whistleblower system for police officers and first responders, but a way by which for them to take in a report, give a report, put a report into an official location, so much of this will go unanswered. So much of it will go unanswered.
As long as they know it's a safe zone and they're not going to lose their credibility or their career, that's what they really need to know.
And it's much like the whole idea, and I know a lot of people in the community are upset with UFO becoming UAP. But changing that designation took it out of the Kleenex box.
Yes,
there are 1,000 things that are called facial tissues. They aren't all Kleenex.
Yes.
And the problem is, a scientist doesn't want to talk about Kleenex. They want to talk about facial tissues.
Exactly.
So when you put it into a Kleenex box, they aren't going to worry about the Kleenex box. Once you turned it into phenomenon, like that is directly a part of scientific protocol, is to find the phenomenon and subtract it from the data set. So you landed it in the backyard of science by doing that. And we need to do the same thing with law enforcement. We need to find what that language is that brings it into their world and makes it pertinent and makes it important.
Exactly. And that's why we're UAP-PD, Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon.
That's right.
People don't just see things
in the
sky. They see things on land.
That's right.
And things are in the water. We have reports of things that are in the water that law enforcement have seen.
Absolutely.
So I love that. That is so fantastic.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I greatly appreciate it. Look right there at the camera. Let everybody know where they can go to find out more about UAP-PD.
They can contact us on our website at UAP-PD.com. We do have a Facebook page of just UAP-PD, and we do have also a Gmail, UAPpolice@gmail.com. Please contact us. Any law enforcement, first responders that have seen or have an encounter that you have not talked about and you would like to share with two police officers, myself and Dave Rich, please contact us, and we'd really love to hear about your encounters. So
Absolutely.
great.
Marianne, thank you so much for your time on this very busy beginning of the MUFON Symposium this year in Irving.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. While you are online checking out everything from Marianne Robb and UAP-PD.com, make sure to stop on by Curious Realm. CuriousRealm.com is where you can find all the episodes. It's where you can like, follow, subscribe, comment. That's where you can order your new copy of the observation and encounter log, where you can write down all the information that you see while you are out investigating. Stay tuned through these quick commercial breaks. We'll be right back with our continuing coverage of the 2024 MUFON Symposium, coming to you live from Irving, Texas, right after this.
The key to good science is good research. At the heart of good research is a good data set. With the field observation and encounter log from Curious Research, you can easily keep track of your investigative information all in one place, making it easier to review cases and readily see comparisons and contrasts between them. Whether out in the woods squatching, in a back room gathering EVPs, or using high-tech gear to track UFO, UAP activity, this easy-to-carry, pocket-sized scientific data log is the perfect companion for any field researcher. You can find your copy of the Curious Research Field Observation and Encounter Log at Amazon.com, or visit the official Curious Realm store at CuriousRealm.com/store to reserve your copy for yourself, your family, or a mind that you want to open. That website again is CuriousRealm.com/store.